Welcome back to Deep in State. I'm your host, Nick Hawks. On today's episode, we have Thomas Nig at Onocoy, one of the co-founders there. This episode is sponsored by Goldhawks & Associates, the most experienced DePIN consultancy in the space. We help projects develop strategy, messaging, and token incentives. We'll have a little bit more on us later in the show. Before we get started, make sure you like, subscribe, smash the bell, all the things that help us keep bringing great guests like Thomas to you. Thomas, thanks so much for coming on.
Thank you, too, for the opportunity to speak to you.
Yeah, I'm psyched to have Onocoy on and to kind of spread the word about it. But let's start with you. Who are you, and how did you come into GNSS, I guess?
Well, that's a long story. I joined the GPS space 25 years ago, and haven't left it since. It's been such an exciting market, an application. You think of satellites 20,000 plus kilometers away, and you can navigate down to the point. So it's awesome. I joined a small startup very early, not as a founder, but as one of the first, employee number 8, in fact, in the year 2000. And stayed there, worked in different functions, built up tech support, product management, and ultimately was responsible for the entire product portfolio for the GNSS portfolio.
Okay, so
you've done consulting in the space until we stumbled across this exciting idea of Onocoy, and I'm still in the space.
And here you are. Okay, so you've been doing GNSS forever. And for folks who are not familiar with it, they would probably know it as GPS, the Global Positioning System, but that's just one of a bunch of different kind of ways that it gets applied by different regions. I guess that brings us to Onocoy then. So you find this thing, it looks exciting. What is it? Tell me how it started. Kind of how does it, what does it do now?
What do we do? Well, we, in simple terms, make GPS 100 times more accurate. If you use your cell phone GPS, it's accurate down to a meter or so. We want it to be down to 1 centimeter. And for that, you need so-called reference stations that provide you corrections that allow you to turn your mobile phone, your car, whatever it is, your tractor, into a super precise thing. You need local references, very narrow, 20, 30 kilometers away from your rover, and such an infrastructure does simply not exist. We have seen this at uBlocks, where we were on the hardware side, that this is needed, and that's really a blocking point, an inhibitor for the market to fly. Then we stumbled across crowdsourcing, incentivized crowdsourcing, DePIN, and so, that's it. That's how you do it. And now we're building the platform that people can roll out these stations, we validate them, and we make them available to the GPS market. And
awesome.
We solve the problem.
Love it. And so for folks who haven't seen, I know in the DePIN space, there's GNSS is a little bit known, but let me just make sure I'm recapping and understanding this, is that what Onocoy is doing is allowing anyone to take their station. It doesn't have to be a specific branded station. It can be any of these reference or base stations. And they add that to the Onocoy network. And that acts as a reference point. So when these GPS or GNSS satellites are beaming down their stream of information, that goes to a known point on the ground. And so any delay in the signal, any bouncing off of buildings or whatever, is basically recognized by that station. And then the station issues a correction stream of information out to other devices around it within about 20 or 30 kilometers. And those devices use that correction stream to take themselves from whatever is a meter down to a centimeter accuracy. Am I getting that kind of mostly right?
Yes, that's a good summary. Yeah.
Super cool. And I guess the exciting thing here is that you guys aren't locked into just one station. You guys are working with a couple different manufacturers, or allowing a couple different manufacturers to put their reference stations onto the Onocoy network. So it allows for folks who already have stations in place to join, and it's not restricted to just one brand. One of the questions that I've seen a bunch on GNSS in general is, most of us kind of walking around consumer wise think of GPS as something for our watch or maybe our phone. But how big is the market, and maybe what are some other sectors that might use it?
Well, the market is enormous. If you look at it in a rather comprehensive fashion, the market for GNSS services is roughly a 250 billion market. And that's just what we see today. I mean, I have been in this space, and this space has grown dramatically fast. Give engineers a toy and they find application. And that's what's going to happen. If you have such a dense network, we see new applications. We can name them, but we have been notoriously bad in predicting which one is the first one to pick up. But they will all come. So it's actually the 250 billion what we see today, and it's growing to probably a factor of this.
You know, it's interesting when I started with the DePIN stuff, is I would have thought as GPS is something just for kind of tracking outside. In fact, paragliders, funnily enough, is how I got into DePIN. But as I've learned more about this particular market, about the GNSS market, it's everywhere. It's in, and now it's something that isn't just restricted to kind of some weirdo sport like paragliding or ultra running or something like that. This is something that's in it's going to be in every autonomous vehicle. It's in all the drones that are out there flying around. It's becoming more and more in every tractor that's out there. And then there are also retrofitting tractors that are doing farm work or ag work. So those nice straight lines that we see, that's not like someone kind of looking down the line and figuring it out. That's a result of this really high precision GNSS solution that you guys have. Okay, super cool. So maybe then we go to, how do people participate? How do they get a station? How do they earn whatever the tokens are? Kind of walk me through that side of it.
Okay, so to start with, you need a station, and you can source them from many sources. We make a list available, but it's actually not an exclusive list. Everybody who has a standards compliant device can sell it, and it can be connected to the Onocoy network. So that's the starting point. But then you need to put it up onto your roof, because in order to work for our purpose, it's not good if you do this on a terrace hidden by many other buildings or in your backyard. You want it solidly mounted on top of your building. And we don't like antennas on 3, 4, 5 meter posts that shake in the wind and bend with the sun. It needs to be stable. Bear in mind, we want to be accurate down to a centimeter, or hopefully even a bit less. On a pole, it shakes a few centimeters or a few inches. Now, how do you get this? So that's why the mounting is really crucial if you really want to contribute to the network and earn these tokens. So get your device, connect it to your home internet, ideal Ethernet, can be Wi-Fi, whatever. Plug it and connect the antenna solidly, and then you register on our website. Pretty straightforward process, and 1 or 2 days later you start earning tokens. Needless to say, you need a wallet to which we can obviously credit all these tokens, and you're fine. And as simple as that.
Super cool. All right. Well, I'll put links in the description of the video down to where you might be able to buy a couple stations and where you sign up on the Onocoy side. But I think that's a super helpful overview of who you are, where you're coming from, what Onocoy is, and how people participate. Thomas, thank you so much for making the time today. Really appreciate you coming on the show.
Thank you too.